Greetings, friends. Reformed Stoic, back again with another video. So I wanted to decompress a little bit. Well, I'd say my last video was decompressing. That was probably the most vulgar, obscenity-wise video that I've dropped, maybe ever on my channel. Quite a few F-bombs. In the video where I announced that I'm a Democrat, I don't have as strong of an idea of exactly what I want to cover in this video, but I did want to answer some questions, cover a couple of things that are on my mind. So first of all, I'm getting some comments from people saying, oh, you fell for the Hegelian dialectic. I believe that I addressed that in the video, but to summarize that entire video in like one sentence, I just want the student loans forgiven, bro. Like, I'm not especially interested in the two-party system and voting. I would like the economic benefits of leftism. Now, I will say that some of the first research that I've been doing as a leftist now, I guess, I watched a video on Reagan. I watched a few videos on Reagan. A lot of people who are devout leftists really don't like Reagan. He had the Make America Great Again slogan before Trump, interestingly enough. He was an actor very similar to Trump. Reagan was like Trump before Trump. With this lady that I watched the other day, she said Reagan walked so that Trump could run, basically. But, looking over his policies and whatnot, he's just kind of like stereotypical trickle-down economics. Right-wing Republican. I don't have that much to say about him. It was before my time. His presidency ended in '89. I was born in '91. But, I don't want to undercut the statement of my last video. Like, I think that it makes sense for me to start identifying as a leftist. And you know what, guys? Maybe some people have caught on to this. I really like animals. And I do care about the environment. I'm interested in topics like deep ecology. I actually watch a lot of vegan content on YouTube. I have absolutely no issues with vegans. When people bash vegans, I've always thought it was just kind of cringe. I've been kind of outspoken against carnivore. I at least think the carnivore diet is very overrated. And yeah, my idea of a system of deep ecology is like put every family on a scale and you get a meat allotment per week. Something in the ballpark of that. Now, the people that would terrify the most is like the carnivore diet people and the keto people. Like, this is an outrage. This is tyranny, man. You're a communist. I gotta get out of here. And you're eating turkey legs and tomahawks. Like, I gotta get out of this totalitarian regime. Stoic's gonna take away my tomahawks and steaks. It would be a generous meat allotment. All that it would weed out is like epic mealtime, bacon strips, bacon strips, bacon strips. You know, some dude bro college guy with sunglasses in the store trying to fill up his entire cart with bacon and meat. Like, no more eating challenges. And it crosses over to fast food restaurants and whatnot, and it would be generous, but you should have some sort of a meat strategy. And then, when people start chiming in on how like horrible and totalitarian that is, I would add that for an extra fee, you can join like the meat elite club or whatever. You can buy like a meat card that ups your meat allotment. But if you want to avoid the fees and the taxation, you just get your regular meat allotment per week. And it's generous, and it just weeds out a little bit of excess. That's my idea. I think that's in line with deep ecology. I'd like to go deeper on deep ecology. I'd like to go deeper on the environment. Now, the first thing that comes to people's minds with leftists and the environment is global warming, global warming. I still don't really believe in global warming. My understanding as of now of global warming, which obviously comes from right-wingers and Christians, is that it is happening, but the idea that there's something that we can do about it is a manipulation. Like, yeah, there is the more carbon emissions and it is doing something to the environment. Or you can look at the same data and it's like, you can't necessarily prove, it's like a correlation fallacy. Correlation does not equal causation. Like, the higher emissions of carbon in the environment could just be a natural side effect of something that's naturally happening. But there's a number of different arguments. I've already said something that's going to trigger somebody to call me an idiot, maybe. I think the safest arguments here for right-wingers is like most of the emissions are coming from India and China, and then in the UK, in the United States, where these like borderline totalitarian economic policies, which are manipulative and are funneling and laundering money, it's like, well, that's no excuse for us not to do our part. If you actually looked at the difference that, the electric cars and the fluorescent light bulbs and these different things that these environmental agencies are attempting to do, it's making like a microscopic impact. It's making a negligible impact on the actual carbon footprint. But I do care about the environment, just like making sure that sea turtles don't have freaking 6-pack plastic rings around their neck, picking up trash, getting crap out of the ocean, protecting the animals, saving the sloths. Y'all know I love sloths. Y'all know I love wolves. Wolves is old school. That goes all the way back to being a child. It got annoying. It got to a point where, like, because that was my thing before I even played drums. Before everybody bought me, like, drumming t-shirts, it was, like, wolf t-shirts and wolf paintings and wolf figurines and wolf statues. All that stuff is cool, though, and I wish I still had all of it, to be honest with you. When I moved, a lot of my stuff broke. I have these little wolf statues, and that's kind of sad. All the pieces are still floating around in the suitcase. I should get some super glue or something. But, you know what animals I'm really liking lately is elephants. Specifically baby elephants. I mean, adult elephants are great. They're just chill. Dude, adult elephants are extremely chill. But there's all these videos of baby elephants playing with people. They're smart. Bro, elephants are really smart. See, this is part of my sensitive empath nature that I've talked about a lot. But now I can really just let it fly. Because it's like, bro, I am totally a leftist. It just really makes sense. Like, I care about the animals. I love the animals. But there's some conflicting forces within the left. Like the scientific atheist left. I still feel pretty much the same about that. And I feel like those are the kind of people who would speak down on animals. Or I guess it could go both ways. A lot of times it's the Christians who speak down on the animals. But I can see the intelligence in the face of elephants. And like there's videos of elephants thinking that somebody's drowning, trying to help someone drowning. Like when you make an ally with an elephant, they're very caring and generous. They want to make sure people are okay. They're very expressive. They live for a very long time. They can live longer than people, over 100 years. Yeah, elephants are awesome, man. They're huge. Stomp somebody in. I mean, that's like the elite species. Like they're absolutely massive. They could definitely have the potential to kill predators. Tigers and lions are awesome. I love cats. I'm a cat guy. And that's actually had me thinking. It's like, I might need to leave behind everything wolf. Wolf is a pack mentality. They talk about the lone wolf, but if you're a loner, you'd probably identify more with like a cat. And I'm a cat person. And let's be real, dude. Like, most of the time, 1v1 a wolf versus a tiger or a lion. Tiger or the lion's gonna jack him up, dude. I had an experience with my dog Oscar back in high school. Me and Oscar, he was half Rottweiler, half Newfoundland. He had a tiny little stub tail. Rottweilers can be pretty mean. He looked like a Rottweiler, but he was kind of like fat and poofy, had a little stubby tail. Wouldn't hurt a fly. He was like super calm. we were hanging out at the neighbor's house, and this freaking cat, dude, it was like a bad martial arts movie from the 80s or something, where somebody's like, hoo-ah! And they're like spinning through the air. Me and my dad watched some movie like that. There was a guy called Thunderfoot. It was so cheesy, dude. He was like spinning through the air and doing thunder kicks. That's what this cat was doing. And it was totally 1v2ing me and my dog. It would just be like, whoosh, and I'd get like 3 or 4 scratches, and my dog would get 3 or 4 scratches. And there was like nothing we could do, dude. There's nothing me and my big ass dog could do against this tiny little cat. Like, a lot of people can't even handle house cats, dude. Imagine what a freaking tiger could do to you. That's Joe Rogan's already covered that territory. Anyway, I love animals. Like, when we're talking about me working, when we're talking about me like contributing something to society in exchange for money, rather than sitting here and being a philosopher, like, I think we should live in communism. And by the way, that's what I'm going to cover next. That's what I'm going to segue into. Somebody in my comments on my I'm a Democrat video left a long comment about Marxism. I started diving into that. I've been meaning to read Marx for years. I'm still going to read Marx. He recommended the German Ideology, I believe it's called. That's like a shorter, more accessible essay than Das Kapital, which is like over 1,000 pages. But I do want to read Marx, and I'm going to continue my research on communism. But before we get into that, I'm just going to say, like, if you're somebody who doesn't want to work, turning society into socialism or communism is not the solution for you, dude. There's the stereotype that somebody on 4chan laid out a long time ago. Here's what happens when your nation becomes communist. You get a knock on the door from Commissar Jamal, and maybe he has like a Jamaican accent. It's like, brother, good news. We've been emancipated from our chains. So Jamal and Rigmal and and Sigmal and Jerome Mall, they're going to live in your house now because private property has been abolished. And you don't deserve this house. So all these people are going to live in your house. And I'm going to come back over this time tomorrow, 7 a.m., and we're going to go to work, my friends. This is the start of a grand new society. And for some reason, over something really fucking stupid, you're probably going to get executed over the next week. That is a pretty accurate depiction of communism. Like, Jamal, like, brother, good news, we've emancipated our chains. And then a bunch of people are going to live in your house, and then he's going to wake you up tomorrow at 7 a.m. so you can go to work camp. And then, unfortunately, like, you said something bad about the communist regime, or you had like an expression on your face that looked like you didn't really hate the bourgeoisie enough, and you had to get executed, bro. So that's a pretty good example of what most communist and socialist regimes end up being. Now, I did just watch a Noam Chomsky video talking about how it's laughable to say that, like, the USSR was actually socialism. And I'm not going to start going down those lines. I'm just going to tell you, first of all, some of the experiences that I've had so far trying to dive into socialism, Marxism, communism with an open mind. I'm more open-minded than people think. You know, I had every single bias that every right-winger has ever had. Like, oh my gosh, communism is this, is that. It's killed more people than anything else. Like, there's a lot of people that are just completely unwilling to be open-minded toward Marxism, communism, any of those things. But I gave it a shot. And sometimes, as a philosopher who's been around the block, I know a little bit about communism already. I know a little bit about socialism and Marxism already. When I'm saying that I'm going to start getting into something, I mean on a whole new level. I mean on like a big boy level. It's like, at this point in my life, guys, at 34 years old, achieving what I've achieved, when I say that I'm going to get into something, that means that I believe I could sit down on a mainstream podcast and have a discussion with people about this thing. So I have a very high expectation for knowing things about stuff. But what I'm saying is, it's kind of like a smug move for me to be like, okay, let's be open-minded about communism and just waltz in here open-minded and just see what happens. Because I have a feeling what's going to happen is some ridiculous things. And they've already happened. The very first channel I found, maybe I'll dig him up. I can't remember what it's called. I'll dig him up and post him in the description. He has videos like why women's sex lives would be better under socialism, why the family needs to go. And I've checked a few sources. I looked up like Christian Marxism, socialism, communism, videos talking about Marx's, the German ideology. I have yet to find a YouTube source on communism or Marxism that didn't start appealing to gender theory, LGBTQ plus, feminism. They're all going on and on and on about feminism. And I find people in my comments, like this guy talking about like a Christian Marxism, or like more like a based Nosbol kind of Marxism, like right-wing Marxism. Now, I'm going to be looking to investigate this premise that I'm about to put forward, but I would say that, like, National Socialism and Marxism are close enough to the same thing, but people who have, you know, far-right sentiments are going to drift toward National Socialism, and people with far-left sentiments are going to drift toward Marxism. People who care about gender theory and feminism and multiculturalism, those people are going to be more inclined toward Marxism. And people who are more about saving the white race are going to drift towards National Socialism. That's my understanding. I mean, if you look at National Socialism, it's socialism for your own people. Now, for both of these ideologies, mainly communism though, because I'm going to keep going into my experience watching these videos, you've never learned enough. It's like, oh no, you haven't read enough, you haven't learned enough, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you think that about communism. Dude, you're an idiot. Communists are, by definition, intellectuals. But that doesn't mean what it sounds like. Like, that just should remind you that, oh, well, being an intellectual doesn't necessarily mean that, like, you're not an idiot. Or it doesn't mean that you're not brainwashed. But as far as, like, just the pure amount of reading, Marxists, like, read a lot of books. Marxists read a lot of books because they are trying to reinvent the wheel from the ground up, okay? I want to do things within capitalist society. I made a post on Twitter today that was somewhat well received. You know, got 5 or 6 likes. Like, everybody in the crew who likes my post liked it. But I was talking about, I mentioned what I'm talking about now. You know, somebody was pointing me toward Marxism, and I was meaning to read Marx at some point. Like, oh yeah, no, I'll study some Marxism, but I already realized long ago, like, it's not for me. And the capitalist society is the society that makes way to the spiritual evolution. This is the society of the Evola's Ride the Tiger and the Kali Yuga. And yeah, it's a game where there's many losers and there's a few winners. Communism undoes the game. Communism is like causing suffering for everybody out of spite for the rich. Like, yeah, if you do it right, if you do socialism properly or communism properly, and I don't think I'm qualified just yet to go over the differences between communism and socialism. I think you're still allowed private property in socialism, is what it comes down to. But without going over the differences, for the most part, you cause more suffering in communism out of spite for the rich. If you do it properly, if you finally achieve real communism, there's nobody overseeing it, pulling the strings, hoarding their wealth from the outside. Which, the way that the world works, guys, I don't think you're ever going to be able to avoid that. Because the way that communism played out, even if people tried to say, oh, it wasn't real communism, the way it played out was that it was actually a tool of capitalism. It relied on outside imports and business, and it was not self-sustaining, and it was a tool of the capitalist elite. So that's what it amounts to. And but socialists, communists, Marxists, they have an answer for everything because they've read a lot of books, because they are radicals, because they are obsessed with their ideology. And I gotta tell you, man, I encountered this guy in some atheist debates yesterday. I was smearing up some atheists. And this guy was like the most intelligent atheist I've come across in a long time. And, he was like, he wasn't winning. He was to the stage where he's trying to like flex really big words to be like, look how educated I am. But when people do that, it's usually because they're not winning the debate. But he was an incredibly intelligent guy. And I was like, I'm going to check out this guy's profile to see what he's about. He had a never-ending, he had like one tweet after the other. None of his tweets had any likes. And it was communist rants on how like step on their necks, ruin them with surveillance, destroy them, make them worship you as their god. Like, he was talking about like violent, communist, anti-right-wing stuff. He was like an extreme communist. And I was just like, you know what, dude? I'm starting to do the stuff that I virtue signaled against, because you guys, it's fucking war out there, man. It's war out there. I've had psyops used against me at this point. I'm taking the fucking gloves off, dude. Like, and when it comes down to, I still haven't sold out my morals. This guy's a fucking lunatic. If I'm debating you and I go to your profile and you're talking about how everybody you disagree with should be fucking stepped on and stripped of their rights and like ruined with surveillance and made to suffer forever because they deserve it, I'm gonna fucking post your status for everybody to see. Be like, look at this nutbag. Like, look at this guy, everybody. What a fucking idiot. I virtue signaled against that kind of stuff in the past because that's what people do with me in my worst moments. But my worst moments aren't really that bad. Okay, I made a couple of goofy noises and went on some rants and wearing those fucking glasses. You notice how I don't wear my glasses anymore? Makes a world of difference. I never wear them. I don't ever wear my glasses anymore. Like, my vision's kind of blurry, but whatever. If I need to read something, I just get close to it. But yeah, so the point of that whole tangent is I came across a very radical communist the other day who was a scientific atheist, and he was the most impressive scientific atheist I've come across in a long time. And he was completely fucking radical communist, and like, I'm worried that if I go into detail on the things he said, I could get punished for it. So, moving on, the point is that communists, to make their system consistent, they know that it starts with a revolution, and that the revolution never ends. And that's how they would answer me. It's like, oh, you're probably just going to create another not real communism that's going to be played by big cigar-smoking capitalists. It's like, comrade Stoic, that's why the revolution never ends. It's never-ending Commissar Jamal. It's never-ending Commissar Jamal. Happiest guy you've ever seen, even though life is like slipping into the most fucking war-torn, starvation-torn dystopia you could ever imagine, because the revolution never ends. They will never rest until every inch of the world is dominated by a communist regime that they can oversee. And my understanding of communism is, the proletariat owns the means of production, so everybody that works at a factory owns a share of it, and they all have a collective say in how it works. And, just being consistent with what communism's about. It requires complete, total revolution. The world has to drown in revolution. And it says the revolution never ends. And I mean, I don't think that that's worth it. A lot of people who come to this idea, they don't want to work. It's like, oh, well, I would want to work if this was different and that was different. But, dude, like, to go from being a cozy, neat, just fucking off, to Commissar Jamal, like, sending you to a work camp, and then you get executed, like, 4 days later. and there's like 5 guys living in your house. It's not worth it, dude. And I don't think it's a good system. And it really says something about society. How, like, yeah, communists are some of the most intellectual people, by the definition, that you will ever come across. They are fanatical. They're extremely well-read. And I would lightly encourage people who are on the side of National Socialism, which... What's the deal? National Socialism. It's one hell of an ideology, dude. I would still give that the nod over any kind of Marxism by far. Because, circling back around to my original statement, there's similar ideologies. Hitler read Marx. Hitler was inspired by Marx, arguably. Mussolini was a socialist. He worked for a socialist paper, and he kind of like inverted it to create fascism. You know, the Iron Guard, Quadrianu's Iron Guard, that was in Rome, right? I don't know. The Iron Guard, Mussolini's fascism, and black shirts, and then, you know, National Socialism, Nazi Party. It was all designed to, like, protect against the communist revolutions that were happening. And, oh, that wasn't real communism. People either try to apologize for Lenin or Stalin. Apparently there's, like, that's the Nazbol, the right-wing sentiment, where right-wingers like Stalin, they either try to apologize for these movements or they say that it wasn't real communism. But those revolutions were terrifying, and things like the Holodomor, which I'm sure a lot of people here already know about, that's the kind of stuff that was going on. And you got to just look at the kind of people that were backing that movement versus the kind of people who were in the fascist movement. And, you know, my understanding is that our guys were in the fascist movement. I'm not a fascist. I want freedom. I still think I'm a leftist. Basically, you know, these, like, libertarians, these kind of, like, libertarian right-wingers who are like, fascists are leftists. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, dude. I'm just more consistent in my ideology than I've ever been. Wee! See, Chad wheeze too. But yeah, so some of the stuff I found, just trying to dive into Marxism, they're all virtue signaling about, you know, like stereotypical far left stuff, LGBT. And this really goes back to the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School was the psyop to de-radicalize the left. It made it less about communism and socialism and more about LGBTQ+, feminism, multiculturalism, those kind of things. Everybody that I've found so far, and I've looked through like 3 or 4 sources, they're all into that. Just like how if you were looking through multiple National Socialist sources, well, they're probably going to have more far right-wing talking points, like saving the white race. That's just the way it is. Like, people with that kind of sentiment tend to be attracted to Marxism, and people with the more, like, white sentiment tend to be attracted to National Socialism. I think that's just the way it is. So, now if you want to take aspects of Marxism and try to use it to, like, improve National Socialism, that would be your best bet, bro. But the idea of, like, being, like, a based guy who had some sort of, like, a far-right sentiment, ethically, religiously, this whole, like, Christian Marxism thing, I don't know. But I respect your opinion, and like I said, you know, read that guy's comment. He knows what he's talking about. Marxists are always, good Marxists are always intellectuals. They've read a lot of books. Now, having said that, the second point that I'm finding from this one Marxist guy in particular, he's spending too much time talking about, like, how much he's read and how he has answers to everything, rather than just making his case. A lot of his case is like, oh, I've read so many books, and every question you could ever ask about Marxism is already answered somewhere. You just have to find the answers. It's like cult talk. They have a lot of cult talk where it's like, trust me, bro, we have all the answers. And then they do have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of videos and then books and books and books and books and books. Like for every single point, there's like 10 books that you could read about it. That's indoctrination 101, bro. Like just because there's books on something doesn't mean that it's the truth. Now, when it comes to somebody in this milieu of Marxism, socialism, anarchism, I was talking about how I wanted to read Proudhon. Somebody mentioned Proudhon in a book thread where I was asking for recommended reading. He has a book, What is Property? He apparently came to the conclusion that property is theft, which sounds kind of like a meme. But then Marx, which this commenter pointed out, I think he's called Think Maxer. Shout outs to Think Maxer. He pointed out that Marx like dealt with Proudhon. He arguably like refuted Proudhon. There's no doubt that the Marxists have like a way more established system, more established and complete system than the anarchists have. But as you've seen, like when they try to establish their system, it becomes a nightmare. And they assure you that like, oh, just read these 30 books, bro, and like why that wasn't real communism, or like how we can deal better with that. Trust me, bro. Just keep reading all these books, and then like it will become clear. And it's like, I think it's already clear to me, bro. I think it's already clear to me, and it really can give you some insight on like how to come to a worldview if you want to learn. Because actually, in a lot of the fascist movements, they talked about being anti-intellectuals for that reason. So you'll get virtue signalers like, the fascists were literally anti-intellectuals. Look it up. Yeah, because communists and Marxists were intellectuals. They're fucking nutbags, usually from rich families with glasses, like Trotsky, and their little curly beards. And they have rooms full of books. Like, look at all these books that my parents bought for me. And it's like, you know what, dude? I'm sorry. Fuck you. Like, and that's where the black shirts and the batons and the bayonets come in, dude. Like, that's kind of what fascism was. Like, yeah, we get it. You've read a lot of books, but we saw what you guys are doing, and fuck you. That's fascism. But anarchism. Here's all I'm going to say about anarchism, because I really haven't dove that deep into it yet. But Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is a smart dude. And the idea I really had for a video was listen to intelligent people talk. It's hard to read books. It's frustrating. It's like, okay, I finally got myself to read this intimidating book. And this has been happening to me with the Thus Spoke Zarathustra book, Zarathustra. It goes in one ear and out the other. I realize that I haven't really been paying attention for the last 30 seconds. Now, for the record, I'm kind of getting the gist of Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The gist of it is do whatever the fuck you want, beyond morals, beyond the group ideology. I do not bow down to the church. I do not bow down to the gods. I do whatever I want. I chase my own will, my will to power. The concept of the will to power really isn't that complex, bro. If you want to like do what I'm doing today, I went for a walk in the park listening to Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to like memorize every syllable of it. A lot of it's really not that deep. The stuff that is deep will probably stand out to you. You can just let it wash over you. It's empowering. It serves as a reminder to question things and to not bow down to things. And also don't bow down to Nietzsche. But, yeah, Noam Chomsky is a really good guy to listen to. A little bit on his view of anarchism. It's just de-establishing oppressive structures. You either conserve and work toward truth and freedom, or you work to preserve tyranny and oppression. So his idea of anarchism is just looking at a structure and saying, that's filled to the brim with multi-millionaires and billionaires who micromanage people's lives and have been sitting on old money for centuries and serve no purpose other than to oppress. this needs to be done away with. In layman's terms, that's kind of my shallow overview of what I'm gathering from Noam Chomsky. He's extremely intelligent. Apparently he has like 180 IQ. He's one of them. He's one of those guys that people talk about. I gotta tell you, man, every now and then, they get it right. I don't know if I would agree with Noam Chomsky on everything, but he is definitely a leftist. And as a leftist, I gotta tell you, man, like, it feels pretty good to not have any more barriers between me and Noam Chomsky. Because he is a fucking intelligent dude, man. He's somebody where you just gotta sit there and listen and think, man, this guy can just sit down. There's a saying that people have, like, somebody can just sit down and play on the piano. That was in Good Will Hunting. It's like, you know how somebody can just sit at a piano and they don't need to look at music or think about it. They can just sit down and play, which is basically like if you play jazz. Well, that's me when I do homework. That's me when I do your organic chemistry homework. Noam Chomsky can just sit down and chew your ear off, and he's always engaging, and he's always intelligent. That guy just reeks of high IQ, dude, and good ideas, and he is a positive force. Southern Israelite went over Noam Chomsky a little bit in the past. He has a couple of like unrelated areas of research. His two main branching off is his politics, which I like, and then his linguistics. He's a linguist and then like an anti-establishment political science guy. Well, his linguist theory is fascinating. Now, I took a philosophy of cognitive science class at UNLV. And at the end of the class, we either had to side with the professor of that course, who was a UC Berkeley guy, who was a top leading intellectual in eliminative materialism, I believe is what it was called. Eliminative materialism versus Noam Chomsky's rationalism. We had to write an essay on why we either supported Noam Chomsky's side of the argument or our professor's side of the argument. Eliminative materialism is like the cutting edge of scientific atheism. There's no fucking soul. You're just an animal. Your mind is just neurons firing and processes. And yeah, it seems like you're complex. It seems like you're really smart, made in God's image. But nope, just neurons fire, neurons fire. I want to fuck. I want to eat. That's why you do everything you do. You die, you're dead, you're gone. That's eliminative materialism. And, you know, I had a really big smug face when I was writing that essay. It was an in-class essay. Well, you know, I see where you're coming from, and obviously you spent a long time thinking about what you think, but I'm just kind of going to go with Noam Chomsky because I think it's more founded in reason, and he gave me a B. And he gave me a B. He's like, yeah, okay, fuck you, dude. Anyway, yeah, so Noam Chomsky's rationalist thought, there's something called the linguist gambit. Like, you take like a 3-year-old and a PhD linguist and have them compete to learn their native language. This is a bit of an abstract thing, but or I guess for the linguist it wouldn't have to be his native tongue. So it's a linguist versus a 3-year-old learning their native tongue. Like a 3-year-old just learning to speak. And the linguist is an expert in language. So they're learning the language from the ground up, and the child is learning the language from the ground up. The child whoops the linguist, basically. Because Chomsky's theory is that we are not a tabula rasa. It's the empiricist tabula rasa, like you're born a blank slate and then you learn, versus Noam Chomsky's rationalism, which is that language is like a part of our DNA. And you think about how like parents don't really teach their kids how to speak. Think about a kid who grows up in a white trash household. It's like, hey, listen to this, son. This will put some fucking hair on your tits. Ball with the ball, da bang, diggy, diggy. Turn that shit out, give me a fucking beer, woman. And it was like, so some like trailer park kid is listening to Kid Rock and like their parents having domestic disputes and beer bottles being thrown around and country music, and somehow they learn how to speak. Nobody is like teaching that kid how to speak. They're not being instructed how to speak. They just learn. If you look at the data that they're being given, it's not adequate to learn their language on the level that they're learning it. So Noam Chomsky's theory is that your language is like growing as a part of your DNA. It's pretty complex and out there. A lot of people listen to that and it sounds too weird to them. Well, you'd have to dive deep on that, and I'm a little bit rusty on it, but it's fascinating. So there's that. There's his linguist, his linguism, and then there's his political philosophy, where he identifies as some sort of an anarchist. And yeah, he has very interesting perspectives on socialism and communism. He's coming from the point of view that it wasn't real socialism. And he makes a very good case for it. And I'm just going to let him speak for himself, because he's tough, man. You know, if you want to be dunking at Noam Chomsky, you better get to work. You better get to work, because he is one hell of an intellectual. But that's 41 minutes, guys. And so, in conclusion, I like animals. If I had a job like picking up litter, saving sea turtles and sloths and elephants, and like helping animals and helping the environment, but not just telling people to get fluorescent light bulbs and cut their carbon footprint, like everything else. Like, you know, I made that song about Greta Thunberg, but when you're actually out there like on a boat delivering food to people who need it, I mean, humanitarian stuff, like real humanitarianism. But that's pretty dangerous. Humanitarianism is like you're going to go get your head chopped off in some third world country. I'd like to help the animals. I wouldn't mind doing humanitarianism. You know, like I take it point by point. It's like, okay, let's go get these babies some bottles and shit. But helping the animals, dude. Helping the environment for real. Not so much the global warming, like getting the fucking soda rings off of the sea turtles' necks. I'd like to do that kind of stuff. A little bit on deep ecology, you know, like the meat allotment. I've had that idea for a long time, bro. It's like I'm not forcing veganism on anybody or vegetarianism on anybody, but maybe there would be some benefits. There could be some benefits for your family. You know, like how there was benefits in Hitler's regime if you had more kids. There could be some benefits if you eat less meat. Now, why is that? Because you drive down the supply just a little bit. So those videos that the vegans show everybody of how horrible the slaughterhouses are, ultimately, there would still be slaughterhouses, but the goal would be to reel it back a little bit, you know, make it a little less inhumane, a little bit more privatized, a little bit more like local farmers, local mom and pops. Get rid of some of these get rid of all of like the mega death factories that are required to supply America with their freaking McDonald's and their epic mealtime challenges and their competitive eating. Like, look, dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't really like competitive eaters because I'm jealous, dude. Because I think that my content is cool and I'm trying to build an audience, and then I pull up somebody like fucking Stoney, like eating 1,000 Taco Bell tacos, and it's got like 70 million views. I'm like, dude, this is just kind of bullshit. But I don't really like competitive eaters. I don't really think that's a talent. I think it's weird. Yeah, I'm an asshole, but it wouldn't exist in my society because it's wasteful. Because your talent, your wonderful talent that's made you a celebrity, is wasteful. It's bad for you. It's killing you. It's hurting the environment. It's hurting animals. They need giga slaughterhouses so you can like do a Taco Bell challenge. It's stupid. It's not allowed. So there's that. Deep ecology. And then just, you know, some thoughts on my ventures into Marxism. I was like, okay, let's be open-minded and listen to some Marxist intellectuals. This should be good. Oh, yeah, we need to get rid of the family. Why? Well, the way it started is like it was primitive, like they're appealing to the primitive families where first the parents would have incest with the children, and then the children would have incest with the children. And I'm like, oh, okay, so when is this going to get to the point, like, why we shouldn't have families? Like, it's not starting out so good. And it wasn't, dude, when I was talking about how that nutbag who had, like, the violent communist rants, he was pulling the, listen to the big words that I'm using, like, look how smart I am, because he was losing the debate. Communists do that shit all the time. They show you, like, how knowledgeable and educated they are, but their reasoning fucking sucks. People like to pull that card on me because my specialty isn't vocabulary, it's pure reasoning and logic. That's my specialty. My specialty is pure reasoning and logic. I don't need the big words. I don't need the big vocabulary. I just know how to get to the fucking point. And that's what's important, and that's how you win. And I'm not trying to be an asshole, but at the end of the day, like, dude, you want to get rid of the family? You want to get rid of, like, children in a house with their fucking mom and dad? Like, dude. Now, I understand, like, the extended family, living with the family, but no, that's not what they're talking about, dude. They're talking about Commissar Jamal and Commissar Jerome living in your fucking house with your children and having sex with your wife. That's what they're talking about, dude. And then that goes on to his next video, why women have better sex lives in socialism. It's nutty, dude. These are like fucking, let's go to the Grateful Dead commune, dude. Let the kids decide, dude. Like, you know where that shit leads. And they're not, a lot of time they're just not good people, dude. A lot of time they're fucking pieces of shit. And now that I've been open-minded, I can, like, reveal a little bit of my hand. Like, yeah, I don't really like commies, dude. I don't really like commies. I don't really like Marxism. There was this guy who had a little mustache, and he seemed like eagle symbology and, like, some ancient Aryan symbology. That guy was kind of cool. He had some good ideas, but I think he was a socialist. Anyway, I digress. We're going to go ahead and leave it at that. God bless you, my friends. More content for you, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.